The Gratitude Journal, 30 Days That Changed a Life. Mr. David, in his early 60s, lived quietly alone in a small house after retiring and losing his beloved wife. His days became monotonous, each one a faded copy of the last, without purpose, without joy. He had nearly cut off contact with the outside world, his heart closed and silent. One day, his daughter visited and placed a small notebook in his hand. "Just 30 days, Dad," she said. "Each day, write down one thing you're grateful for." David looked at the notebook, confused. Grateful? Grateful for what? On the first day, David sat at his table, pen in hand, heart heavy. Everything inside him felt gray, emotionless, drained of hope. He sighed, turned to the first page, and stared at the blank space as if it were mocking him. Gratitude? He muttered bitterly. After a few moments of hesitation, he finally wrote, "Thankful that it didn't rain today." A dry, forced sentence. No feeling behind it, but it was a beginning, a fragile first line in a journey no one could yet predict. In the following days, David continued to write, but more out of obligation than belief. Thankful for hot tea. Thankful the mailman didn't knock too loudly. Though the words were still hollow, he started noticing small things around him. One day, he heard birds singing outside the window and smiled, just slightly. One morning, he wrote, "Thankful for the gentle sunlight at dawn." He didn't realize it, but something within him was softening. A quiet seed was beginning to grow from that little notebook. By the second week, David's entries took on deeper tones. One rainy afternoon, he wrote, "Thankful for all the times my wife made tea and called me to sit by the window." Memories he thought long buried began to stir, vivid and aching. He flipped through old photo albums, his eyes stinging at the sight of her smile. That day, he wrote, "Thankful for the years I spent with you, though too few." His words were no longer forced. They had become whispers from a heart slowly learning to touch the past again. In the third week, something in David shifted. Instead of sitting silently by the window, he stepped outside. He spoke with the mailman, greeted his neighbor watering plants, and lingered longer at the local bakery. Each night, he wrote, "Thankful for the chat with Mr. Tom in the park. Thankful the morning birds woke me up today." Small moments once overlooked now felt precious. David began to feel like part of the world again, not just a lonely observer. In the final week, David turned inward. His journal was no longer filled with external moments, but reflections from deep within. He wrote, "Thankful for not giving up. Thankful for the past. Painful, but it taught me to love." For the first time, he forgave himself. For the regrets, the anger, the failures. Relief spread through his body. He realized he had never truly been alone. His heart had just been locked away too long. On the final day, David sat with the now-filled notebook in his hands. He flipped through the pages, each line like a warm breath melting the ice around his heart. He smiled and wrote one last sentence. "Thankful to my daughter for giving me 30 days to look back at my life." A tear fell, not from sadness, but from gratitude. He stepped out onto the balcony, the morning sun gently touching his face. And for the first time in many years, David smiled, truly smiled. Light, free, and alive. After the 30-day journey, David was no longer the same somber man. He rekindled old passions, signed up for a photography class, and began writing short stories he had long abandoned. Each morning, he walked to the park, capturing sunlight through the trees and jotting down how it made him feel. He realized aging wasn't an end, but a chance to start a new chapter. Through gratitude, he didn't just heal the past, he lit up the present, gently, steadily, and deeply. And he didn't keep gratitude to himself. David bought several blank notebooks, wrapped them with care, and gave them to friends and neighbors, with a note. "Try it. Just 30 days. One thing you're grateful for each day." A widowed friend teared up. An elderly woman said it had been years since she last wrote anything by hand. David never expected such a small act could stir such emotion. The seed of gratitude he had planted quietly began to bloom, softly yet meaningfully. On the final page of his journal, David wrote, "Thank you for giving me another chance to truly live." He closed the notebook and smiled, the first light-hearted smile in years. He was no longer afraid of quiet mornings or the dark of night, because every day now held something worth treasuring. He had learned, we cannot change the past, but we can change how we live today. through the simple, powerful act of being grateful. And sometimes all it takes is one little notebook to save a soul.